So one of the things that you're going to find is that narcissists use all of these toxic little tactics, and if we know what they are, we can protect ourselves. It almost becomes like defense against the dark arts. And one of the things you may have noticed with my longer videos is that I've always kind of had, like, 5 or 6 different toxic tactics, and I just been putting them together in shorter form. And what I've done is, just because people have asked, is just like, let's put them all into one video, and that's what this video is. In this video, there's 75 tactics that narcissists use, and it's going to help you, if you understand what those tactics are, protect yourself better. And to help you navigate, if you go into the descriptions, it'll be a time code there, and you can skip through the ones that you may already know. And if you're curious, you can just kind of click on the other ones. And once you know these tactics, it's going to feel like, oh my gosh, it's like all these games that they're being played, they're kind of playing in the background. And once you kind of realize what they are, they're no longer in the background. It's like realizing that you're in a game of Jumanji, and the only way out is understand the rules that these narcissistic, game masters are playing. Because, they can't help it. They just keep rewriting the script, rewriting the rules. And why? Because, I think somewhere in their minds, it's like they have that power to just rewrite the rules, and they don't. And these tactics that narcissists use, like gaslighting, it's like their piece de resistance. Narcissists will say something, did I say that? You must be imagining those things. It's like they've turned life into a game of Twister. And you find yourself like bent over backwards and twisted, all trying to figure out where the truth is. Another tactic you gotta be aware of is just narcissistic projection. And narcissistic, projection is a lot like, starring in a movie where, they're the villain, but somehow you're the one that ends up on trial. And they can't process their own emotions, so they project them onto you. So they say things like, I'm not angry, you're the one who's angry. It's like, what? It's like being in a Kafka novel where, up is down and left is right. But the thing that stays the same is you always seem to be wrong. Another tactic to watch out for is just called blanket statement. These blanket statements are things like, you always do this. You never understand me. It's like they got a script from like a really bad soap opera. And you're like suddenly this unsuspecting guest star who's just been sentenced to just a lifetime of plot loops. Let's go into another tactic. Another tactic that narcissists use is just called diverting focus. It's something you got to kind of keep an eye on. Because they have this weird way of just playing like, where's Waldo? But Waldo is the truth, and it's suddenly hiding in plain sight. Because you be talking to a narcissist about something, and then, they could just stop the conversation. Says, why are we talking about what I did with your friend did something like it was way worse than that? And you realize these conversations where diverting focus is used, it's almost like being in a maze with no exit. Because that's what diverting focus does. You can't pin them down on anything. It's like they're Teflon. Now let's go into another tactic. This one's called minimization. Minimization is just taking big deals and trying to make them really small. Taking like a huge mountain that you may have and trying to reduce it to the size of a molehill. It's like, they imagine themselves or the problem as, a Lego brick, and suddenly, you're Duplo. All it did was just kind of pushed you a little bit. Gravity's at fault. Gravity's the one that made you fall down. And the one thing that narcissists seem to have in common is this selective memory amnesia. And you know what that's like? It's like they're the DJs of their own reality. And they're spinning tracks that only play their greatest hits. And just conveniently skipping over all the tunes where, narcissists may have messed up. And they'd be like, I don't remember saying that. Or that never happened. It's like a narcissist memory bank is less a bank and more of like just a black hole. One that selectively, swallows up anything that doesn't shine a spotlight on, their brilliance. The thing to be careful of with narcissists is just, this victim card that they always play. And you can imagine as if like the narcissist is like the lead actor in the script that they've created, directed, and produced. And the role that they're always playing is they're the misunderstood hero and everyone else is the villain. It's as if they cast themselves as the reverse Robin Hood. And what are they doing? They're like stealing sympathy in order to enrich the narcissist's own narrative. And these games, they're just so relentless, they just don't stop. Withholding information, that's another tactic that narcissists use. It's like they're playing this game of keep away. And their job is to make sure that the rabbit stays inside the hat, and then you're left clapping on an empty stage. And it's true, you are participating on this weird stage, all right? But you're the only one that didn't get the memo. This is improv night. Other thing to be careful of is like when you're in a conversation with a narcissist, what you'll find is they're constantly changing the subject. This is a narcissist version of a smoke bomb. Just It's like the moment you start zeroing in on the truth, it's just like bam, and then it just disappears into the conversation. And suddenly, you're talking about the weather, and suddenly you find out you're talking about the weather in Portugal, or a meme where a baby is riding a cat. And it's less about a conversation, a back and forth one-on-one, and it's more about just this wild ride through this weird hall of mirrors, where every reflection is just another distraction. Squirrel! And like narcissists, they're master at playing this game of being just defensive. If a narcissist had a spirit animal, it'd be a porcupine on steroids. Because it's like those quills, they come out at the slightest little provocation. Any kind of little threat to their teeny weeny egos. It's like they have this super sensitive filter to their egos. And suddenly they'll go from being calm to just boom. They'll just transform right into just this armored tank of just indignation and blame. You're like, me? Wrong? Impossible! You must be looking in the mirror. You're not looking in the mirror. No one can have an ego that fragile that they need to attack to defend it. And let's talk about a tactic that narcissists use, and it's like the silent treatment. The silent treatment from a narcissist is like, it's just like they just turn into a human glacier overnight. It's like they were so kind and so loving, and all of a sudden it's just like they won't even talk. And it feels like you're like stuck in this emotional tundra, wondering like, where is the warmth? Has it been this cold the entire time? And we can turn the tables on those, because it can be almost a gift sometimes, the silent treatment. Because it allows us to just kind of reset our system. Flipping the script, it's like, fabulous, great, you're giving me the cold shoulder, thank you. I've always had a thing for ice sculptures. You can use that cold shoulder to carve yourself a statue of, it's like maybe the thinking man. It's kind of stuck in self-contemplation. And evasion is a narcissist's way of turning every conversation into a kaleidoscope of nonsense. You can ask a narcissist a simple question. Narcissist just kind of weaves this answer that's just so tangled and complicated. It's almost like, headphones that you put in your pocket and they just get all tangled up. That's the narrative that they kind of create. You ask them the simple questions like, hey, what did you do last night? You just kind of come back. It was like, oh, usual, a bit of this, a bit of that. Like, why are you asking me? Why are you thinking what I'm doing? You think I'm blah, 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 blah. You're paranoid. It's like, I just asked you what you did last night. That's it. You're stalking me. I'm not stalking you. Just ask a simple question. It's like, that's how they can manipulate things, manipulate facts. And just project all their paranoia onto you. You realize you can't get a straight answer from them. Another thing to keep an eye out for is like triangulation. That's where a narcissist is like you're finding yourself like on this reality TV show. And it's one that you never auditioned for. A narcissist just plays the role of this puppet master, and then suddenly there's a third wheel there that you didn't see coming. It's like they're trying to host an award show, a very own award show, and they've nominated you for best supporting role in an imaginary love triangle. Another tactic they use is just like projective identification. This is their way of making you the villain of their story. It's like a twisted game of hot potato, but it's with a grenade. And before you know it, you find yourself, you're the one that's kind of holding this grenade of their own insecurity. Wondering when there was a costume change. It's like an illusionist that just kind of, convinces the audience that they're seeing a monster, not the mirror that the narcissist is holding in front of them. Another narcissistic tactic is scapegoating. And this is the narcissist version of the blame game. And guess what? It's like you're always it in their world. You're always the butterfly that caused the hurricane. When that dropped ice cream, all of a sudden it causes a meltdown of epic proportions. And you always feel like you're like the unsolved Rubik's Cube to their life's frustrations. It doesn't feel like you're just kind of carrying the hat of all their emotions. It feels like, you're like the recycling center for every fault and every folly that the narcissist has already carried around. They don't want to carry it around, so they give it to you. And it's so messed up. All right, I'm going to dig into even more narcissistic tactics, so it's important to really pay close attention to this. Shaming by a narcissist. And it's like, they're like them trying to plant weeds into your mental, emotional garden space. And what they're trying to do is hoping to just kind of choke out all the flowers of your self-esteem, the ones that you've carefully nurtured. And then they love to throw just shade on everything. And it's more than shade. It's like they're trying to create this eclipse of your entire sense of self-worth. And they'll do it with like a remark. It's like, oh, you're going to go out in that outfit. That's pretty adventurous for someone with those, your interesting bone structure, with those ankles. And then, guilt tripping. With a narcissist, it's like being on a never-ending escalator, where every step upwards feels like you're going 2 steps back. All thanks to the courtesy of their just emotional gravity that just keeps pulling you back. And narcissists can make you feel guilty for anything. It's like they can even convince you that, you're responsible for the extinction of the dinosaurs. Way to go. If you had distracted me, I would remember to feed the T-Rex. We'd still have Tyrannosauruses today. Like their logic is just like, it's so weird how anything can be made to make you feel guilty. Anything. Another tactic narcissists use is just like it's feigning ignorance. This is their version of pretending to be a scarecrow out in a field of facts. This is unmovable, unbothered, just ah. And meanwhile, there's like crows of truth, like actual truth floating above them, and they're completely oblivious to it. It's like trying to explain quantum physics to a goldfish, just pretending that it doesn't understand the whole concept of water. What's that? And here's the thing, it's like your feelings, like your emotion. So a narcissist is just like as if they don't exist. Like, huh? Yeah, you have feelings? Yeah, I'm not familiar with that concept. Not registering. It's like their entire reality stops at the tip of their nose, and there's nothing that exists outside their own emotions. Another tactic to watch out for is denial. Because in this world of narcissists, it's like, living in a castle that's just made of lies. Their entire existence is almost as if it's a lie. And as they surround it, they dig it out with this, this moat that just keeps reality at bay. It's like they wear denial as like a cloak of invisibility, hoping that it makes, all their misdeeds just invisible. And I love to say, that wasn't me. You must be confusing me with someone else. Who cares? Because it feels like narcissists just don't care about anyone but themselves. And narcissists seem to be able to rationalize just about anything. Because a narcissist could take an action that you've seen, clear as day, and then twist it into a pretzel of logic that would make like a philosopher just cry down in tears and pull out his own hair. They'd be like, I only read your diary because, I care about you so deeply. I did it for your own good, really. It's like, screw you. This is such BS. Because in this wacky sitcom of life, the control for narcissists is their favorite remote. And they're always aiming to change your channels without even asking you. And you can find yourself, it's like being stuck in a video game where, they hold the controller. And you're the character that's trying to dodge all these endless obstacles that they throw in your way. You start asking yourself, is this real life? Or am I stuck in some weird dystopian episode of the Twilight Zone? And one thing that's important to understand in these toxic relationship dynamics is the cycle of idealization and devaluation. Because it can feel like at one moment you're the star of the show, you're basking in the spotlight, and then next you're the understudy for the understudy, wondering where all your lines went. And it's like this psychological thrill ride where these dips are so devastating and the climbs get fewer and fewer. Now, our safety net is understanding a narcissist's bag of little tricks. And two of the things that they use a lot is isolation and financial control. Isolation to keep you away from, a support network and can help you see through all of this toxic, mind bendery. And financial control as just a form of control, keeping you trapped in these relationships, feeling like you can't escape. And being able to see those tactics and label those tactics is like being able to just peek behind the curtain and see the nightmare that's coming your way. And the thing you'll find about dealing with like a toxic narcissistic abuser is it's like having a director for your life's movie who's decided that it's a one-person show and it's all about them, the narcissist. And you find that they're trying to choreograph every single move. They're just cutting all your lines and they're rewriting your scenes, making sure the spotlight never strays away from the narcissist. And to a narcissist, it's just like this emotional manipulation. It's almost like Oscar work. It's like narcissists see themselves as, the Spielbergs of strife and crafting scenes of conflict with, the experience of a veteran, because it's like they are veterans. They've been creating chaos their entire lives. They're like so good at it. It's like it's natural for them. And there you are in the middle of it. You're stuck in this blockbuster drama film, except you never auditioned for this part. There's no Oscar at the end for this performance. And this constant back and forth in these narcissistic dialogues is what you're finding is they'll flip the script on you. And one moment you're like the apple of their eye, and the next it's just like they're describing you as if you're the worm in the middle of that apple. And they flip so fast it can give you vertigo, make you dizzy. And it's so weird because yesterday you could have been, the hero of their story. And today you're the villain and you're scheming in the shadows according to them. It's not just a plot twist. It's a whole new genre of manipulation. And you're just scrambling to keep up with it, trying to stay on top of it. And here's the thing. It's like narcissists, their ultimate aim is to turn your reality into some B-movie kind of horror film where you're questioning every shadow and just doubt every line that's being thrown at you. And we can't turn on the lights. And when we do, what we see is that this alternate reality that they've created, it's all made out of like cardboard and paint. Because here's the reality. It's like the more you recognize these traits, the better equipped you are to navigate, this narcissistic, crap fest storm. And what you'll find is narcissists use shame a lot. Shame is like in their toolkit of a toxic person. It's like a verbal flamethrower that just scorches the landscape of your self-esteem. And beyond just mere criticism, it's an all-out assault. And narcissists wield shame as if it were like a chain that's kind of tethered to your heartstrings, to your soul. And they pull at them and they manipulate them, all just at their own, to meet their own desires and their own needs and their own whims. And you think about it, it's like before you met them, it's just like your self-esteem was probably at a normal level. And you were thriving in your own world, in your own way. And you had your own accomplishments. And then enters this toxic narcissist, acting as if they're just this one person, apocalypse. And then they go around launching these verbal missiles of just, shame in order just to obliterate you. Everything that you hold dear is what a narcissist will attack, will try to dismantle in some way. It's like they completely blow up your world, both internally and externally. Doesn't matter to them. Everything is fair game. And what's their goal? Their goal is to reduce your life and of your pride and of your dignity into just rubble. The narcissist will take the most tender parts of your history, just those raw moments, those little things that have happened to you over time. And if they were a loving person, they would help you heal. They would add like a little bond to it. They would help you grow. But instead, it's just like as soon as they find you have a weakness, what do? They sprinkle salt on it because they want to hurt. They don't want to heal. They want to hurt. It's like they're archaeologists that are just activating pain and suffering. They look for this as ammunition in their campaign of domination. And they're so bent and they're so twisted. Narcissists, they have the gall to blame you for the wounds that they inflict. It's like criticizing a ship for sinking after it's been torpedoed. It's just like, well, ships don't survive torpedoes. That's just not how it works. And suddenly it becomes your fault for being sensitive to their constant jabs. And it's just not right. The way they manipulate things, it just be like, oh, you got a headache. Oh, it's probably because, you didn't fold my laundry properly. Because even your hurt becomes a crime against them in some way. It's just such twisted logic. And the second you realize that, a narcissist is looking for your vulnerability, it's just like, all right, well, that's a key sign to put them under lock and key, because you can trust somebody. And if they take your trust and they earn it and they help you, then obviously you can reveal more to them. But if they're taking these vulnerabilities and later using them against you, well, guess what? It's like that drawbridge of my vulnerabilities is closing. You protect them. You protect your vulnerabilities like precious gems in a treasure chest, lock and key, until like you're absolutely certain that the person that you're with, that you can trust them. And a narcissist just starts to shame you. It's just like noticing that these verbal volleys that are being played, it's about recognizing that the strikes for what they are. It's a sign of their weaknesses and their insecurities and their frailty, how sensitive they are. It has nothing to do with you. And once you see that, what you're going to realize is that, they're shaming you because there's something wrong with them, not you. If you try to figure out narcissistic logic, it's just like you're going to lose your mind. Because narcissistic logic, it's just as twisted as a pretzel. You know what narcissists eat? They eat self-esteem of others. Because it's kind of like their favorite little snack to munch on. Oh, you have honor, dignity. I'll eat all of that. It's just like nuts. And we've all heard of constructive criticism, but this is the exact opposite. And there's nothing constructive about this criticism from a narcissist, because their mandate is to just destroy everything in order to maintain their control. And you can imagine as if you're like an artist and you're just painting from your heart, or you're a musician and just kind of playing lyrics that are coming from your heart. And along comes this critic. Why don't you just carve something out of marble, make something beautiful out of marble, or suggest taking a pottery? Because there's no such thing as proper praise from a narcissist. It may look from a distance like they're throwing confetti into the air and celebrating your achievements, but you actually look up close, what you realize is this is just a messy glob of goo from weekend-old compost that's been left in the sun all day. And they just literally throwing up their own garbage. You know what else keeps us off our game? It's like a tactic that narcissists use called moving the goalpost. It's like a favorite sport in Narcissistville. And it's like, here you are playing a game of soccer where the nets just seem to, every time you take a kick, the nets literally pick up off the ground and move. And just when you realize that, you're about to celebrate a possible goal, you realize the game has changed. Now you're playing like Quidditch. And you're left standing there like, how did this happen? Why am I holding a broom? Like, when did the rule book change? When did this game change? Because as soon as you think you figured it out, the rules change and the new game gets played. Another thing you're going to find with narcissists, they have this perpetual dissatisfaction. And it doesn't matter how sunny your achievements are or how much success you receive. There's always this narcissistic cloud of you're just not good enough. And they're just constantly ready to rain on your parade. It's like you're stuck on this treadmill that's being fed by a sadist. And there you are running full tilt. And it's just like the scene never changes. It's just the constant repeat of the old scene. It's like the Flintstones. And you start thinking, where's that finish line? And there isn't one, because as soon as you start to get close, it moves, it moves, it moves, it moves. It's almost like the finish line is like on a string, and they're like holding the stick, making you think that you could actually achieve it, and it's just not possible. And God forbid that you gotta pin a narcissist down on something, because one thing that they're really good at is a technique called diverting focus. And this is like a narcissist version of a magic trick. It's like, it's like you feel like you're the magician's assistant. But instead of pulling a rabbit out of a hat, you're trying to juggle all their ever-changing desires. Like, no matter what happens, it's like it's different, it's different, it's different. Oh, you want this? No, now you want what? And it's like, they can make you feel like one moment you're a huge success, and the next you've missed the mark on a target, and they never even showed you. It's like you're stuck in some weird plot twist of some twisted soap opera where without any dramatic music whatsoever. And it's just confusing because it's just like, that's just not a reality that we've kind of grown up with. So of course it's confusing. Of course it doesn't make sense. And it's like when we're talking to or trying to navigate any kind of communication with a narcissistic person, what we realize is that it's a verbal just minefield. And the important thing for us to do is be able to know what the mind actually looks like, just so we can step away from it and just so it doesn't explode. And name calling is just like, the narcissist Olympics. It's like, it's a gold medal event for them. Because in their essence, narcissists are just toddlers in the schoolyard, and they're just trash talking. Narcissists use name calling. They wield it like a kid in a playground, but they're doing it strategically. It's almost like they have this war map that they're trying to use just to undermine your own credibility, your own self-worth. If you dare voice a different opinion, it's just like, bam. Narcissists will label you an idiot faster than you can say, what the? Because what you'll find is less about making a point and more about dropping verbal bombs that annihilate your self-esteem. That's the whole point of name calling. Then we have other tactics like, the drive-by insults. So it's like a narcissist, hit and run game. And it's not about just dropping shade on your parade. No, it's about dropping an entire cluster bomb of grenades into your camp. And what are they going to attack? They're going to attack your intelligence. They're going to attack your appearance, your core beliefs, things that you love, things that you care about. Everything is fair game to a narcissist. It's as if they're armed with just a verbal bazooka, and their only goal is to leave scars on whoever their victim is. If you look at why narcissists do these things, it's like undermining credibility is a narcissist's way of just shifting the battlegrounds. Like, why bother with the hassle of a debate when narcissists can just, blow your reputation up instead? Like, why deal with you fairly? Just knock you out at the knees, right? And it's like, how do they react? It's like, oh yeah, you have an opinion. That's kind of cute. But remember who you're talking to. Talking to the overlord. It's just a facade. It's just like a cheap trick to make you think that, they hold the spotlight. And what do they do when they're holding the spotlight? They want to shine it on themselves. There's just so much grandiosity in there. And you'll find these toxic conversation tactics that narcissists use. It does feel like when you're in there in the middle of them, it's trying to like navigate a corn maze in the dark. Only thing is, like every corner, every turn that you make, it just makes you more and more confused, makes you feel more and more lost. And you find that these circular conversations that you get stuck in, they spin you around like a merry-go-round that's just had the thing cranked up all the way to warp speed, warp 9. And then the word salad is just kind of tossed up like some crazy Swedish chef. I don't even know what the ingredients are. I don't even know what we're talking about. Like, the chef's gone wild. It's gone rogue. And their attacks, they come at us like, they're a pie throwing contest in a slapstick comedy. When you actually look back and realize how nuts these conversations that we had with narcissists actually were. Because looking back, none of it actually makes any sense. And you're left wondering, if the exit was just a figment of your imagination. Like, is there an actual finale to any of these conversations? Or is the goal just to keep you spinning? Because you'll find it's just like a debate over the grocery list. All of a sudden it becomes into this debate over, what you wore at your high school prom and who your boyfriend was and whether or not you made out in the limo. None of your business. And the two are not related. And yet there you are, debating it. So just be aware. Be aware that like when a narcissist tries to discredit you or tries to confuse you, could be because it's kind of like the narcissist motto to do that. And just feel like, they're playing darts in the dark. Just throwing everything they've got in hopes that something will hit a mark. Meanwhile, you're just kind of standing there going, what the hell is all of this? How nuts are they? And at first, we're kind of sensitive, so it feels like all of their jobs are just kind of finding their way and sticking to us like Velcro. But eventually, we see that this is just nonsense games that are just being played. And it's like, I'm not even going in the room and forget about this Velcro suit that I'm wearing. I'm not wearing that no more. It's like, forget it.
It's like, when we talked about, how dinner was at the restaurant that we went to, becoming the debate over the dessert choices of the last wedding that we went to and how horrible they were. And what a horrible friend they were for inviting us. It's like, how does that happen? It just does. And when you look back, you go, "Wow, that was a trip down crazy town. That conversation made absolutely no sense," and it didn't. But thankfully, in the ability to look back at just like how these little verbal jousting, little antics that are being played are constantly being played out, it's not coming from a very stable mind. So of course there's never any resolution. So you can imagine this, like narcissistic sarcasm. It's not like the little bit of salt that you put as seasoning in a conversation to make it more interesting. No, it's just like the way you use it. It's like pouring hot sauce, and it leaves you reaching for water because it's just like, narcissist is so skilled at just using sarcasm. Oh, you tied your shoes. I'll buy you a towel. That's really good. Should we throw you a parade? With marching band and, streamers, maybe ticker tape. It's that kind of belittling that just comes wrapped in a narcissist smile. It doesn't matter where you are in your day or however that things are going. It just kind of feels like a narcissist really just wants to trip you just before you cross the finish line. And then they call it helping. Right. That's not helping. But you see how narcissistic sarcasm works. And another way to kind of look at narcissistic sarcasm, it's almost like, it's like this weapon. It's like putting a lightsaber inside a kindergarten class. Like, sure, it's a precise weapon. It can cut really deep. Well, most hands, it's actually quite dangerous. Narcissists use sarcasm in order to cut through your self-esteem, just like a lightsaber. And if you show any signs of being hurt or cut, suddenly you're being accused of being, you're not able to handle a simple joke. Why are you so sensitive? It's kind of like narcissistic sarcasm. It's like being slapped in the face with a velvet glove. It's like it has a sting, that velvet glove, and it's hidden behind a facade of softness. Narcissists are really good at just kind of throwing out their little barbs, these toxic little barbs, these little quips. It can kind of make you feel like you're a long-tailed cat in just this whole room full of rocking chairs. You may find yourself in that room, tiptoeing around, trying to decode every single comment, every single little smirk. When is the next one going to drop? It's like being in a minefield, but every time you step on a mine, there's a narcissist in the corner giggling. Just before the bomb explodes. And covert malice, that's a narcissistic tactic. It's like having a friend who's always pranking you, but the pranks are just mean, and you're the one that's not laughing. It ends up being that kind of humor that's all bite and no bark, leaving you feeling like you're the punchline of a joke you never found funny. I was just joking when I said you were a terrible human being. Can't you take a joke? That's what a narcissist says. It's like getting a pie in the face every single day and being told it's your favorite dessert. It's not. That's because narcissists are just masters at invalidating your feelings. They turn every expression of discomfort into an overreaction, according to them. Imagine opening up about how you feel, only to be told that you're making a mountain out of a molehill. It's like crying after you've been tripped and being laughed at for not watching where you're going. Oh, lighten up, a narcissist will say. It's just a joke. As if your feelings and your emotions and your heart and your soul are just a setup for one of their toxic little punchlines. Now, gaslighting strategy is something that's really important to understand, because to a narcissist, it's like a masterclass in shifting reality, in bending reality and distorting it. It's not just about mean humor, because what you realize when you look at it from a different perspective is that it's a deliberate tactic to make you doubt your own feelings, your own reaction. And if you dare question a narcissist's joke, suddenly, you're the one that's being way too sensitive. It's as if you're wrong for not finding a humor in your own humiliation. Well, yeah, duh. It's like being told the water that you're drowning in isn't even wet. And what you're going to find is standing up for yourself in this twisted little narcissistic comedy tournament they're constantly playing. It's not about causing a scene. It's about just changing the channel altogether. It's letting the narcissist know that their kind of humor isn't welcome. Like, not today, not tomorrow, not ever. And assertiveness, it isn't about being rude. It's about demanding just basic respect that you deserve. It's like finding ways to tell the narcissist that their jokes just aren't funny, that they're hurtful. I just won't stand for them anymore. Because it's important to end these interactions sooner. Because sometimes, the best response to a narcissist is like no response at all. And what you'll find is the narcissist or performance, it just kind of falls flat if there's no audience there to encourage them on. And their power, it just kind of fizzles out like, a firecracker. Just a dud. The fuse just kind of burns into it, and then there's nothing. You're basically telling the narcissist, it's just like, you want to keep making these jokes, great, we'll perform to an empty room. It's the ultimate like mic drop, and leaving them on a stage alone, only to hear their own echo. Now we're going to move on and learn even more of these narcissistic little strategies. And the ones I want to kind of talk about right now are like misrepresentation, invalidation, guilt, and just this ability that they think they're like mind readers. Because these narcissistic tactics, it's like stepping into an alternative reality where every word that you say is twisted into a storyline that you don't even recognize. Narcissists are masters at the deliberate misrepresentations. It becomes like this, a manipulation strategy where having a conversation with someone who's just wearing distortion goggles. You say like, I'm a little bit upset, and suddenly it's as if you've declared war on peace itself. And it's like their narcissistic, brain translator machine turns I'm fine into an epic tale of, angst and conspiracy and bizarre alchemy. I can turn lead into gold. It's like if gold actually meant, just these dramatic outbursts. Because narcissists they're brilliant at just like, invalidation and guilt. Because they have a way of transforming every little expressed concern you have into a narcissist little melodrama play where you cast as the heartless antagonist all the time. And it's more than just twisting your words. It's like they're directing a play where your lines are fed to you, and somehow you're always the villain. There's boot at the end of every scene. And they just kind of say, you're upset. Well, clearly you despise my essence. Well, I do, but in this instance, it's just I'm not thinking about you at all. And it's hilarious how narcissists kind of think that, they can read people's minds. It's almost like a narcissist version of, wearing that wizard's hat and claiming to have mythical powers of perception. Their crystal ball is just foggy with bias. And their insights are less about understanding you and more about, contorting your narrative to fit a narcissist, plot line and storyline. And when you hear a narcissist say, like, I know what you're thinking, it becomes this game of telephone where the message is just completely lost. And only the narcissist version is left at the end of the game. It's like their paranoias just appear as premonition. Then they turn them into projections with like absolutely no basis in reality whatsoever. That's why the kind of narcissist could launch like a preemptive defense, which puts you in this surreal position of being accused of thoughts you haven't even had. A preemptive strike is like, accusing someone of stealing cookies before the jar was even open. And then if you point that out to them, they'll be like, you think I'm crazy. This is like the battle cry of someone that's fighting ghosts, possibly their own ghosts, paranoid ghosts, kind of dropping thoughts into them, making them think that they're premonition. So it's just like, yeah, it's their crazy town. It absolutely is. It's infested. It stinks. So it's like setting boundaries in this little twisted little game. It's so important. And yeah, you may feel like you're the lone umpire in this match, where the rules are just kind of made up and the points don't matter. I mean, that state, it's all about being clear and concise. And, sometimes it may feel like you're being repetitive, but it's just important to just keep your position clear. It's like, it's okay. Let's just pause this. Let's rewind it. Check out the instant replay, because that's not what I said. And that you just kind of took my words and twisted them. That's not what I meant. Because what you're going to find is empowerment against this narcissistic distortion field comes from holding fast to your own reality, like a lighthouse, standing up against a tsunami of nonsenseness. It's recognizing that, their narcissistic narrative is for fiction. It's all fiction. It's all made up. And not allowing their fiction to turn into truth. It's not a reality that we accept. And at some point, we realize it's not about us correcting a narcissist's lies. It's about reclaiming our voice and holding on to our truth. And what you find is, the words that actually what I said becomes like a mantra, becomes like a spell to dispel illusions and keep your story straight. And what you might find is that, suddenly you'll be finding yourself in this twisted game show where it could seem like every wrong answer means that you're walking the plank. And the narcissist is more of a pirate than a presenter. He's a big part of the narcissist, toolbox. It's just using threats. And they use them as a multi-purpose tool. So it's important to keep that in mind and be aware. Because the second a narcissist hears you disagree with me, well, batten down the hatches, because here comes the storm. And at that point, what ends up happening is these relationships and these conversations, they're less about reaching a mutual understanding and more about negotiating with a narcissistic movie villain terrorist. You've just revealed their master plan, and somehow you're mixed up in this stupid little plot narrative of theirs and you never agreed to. And what you're going to find is disagreements with narcissists. It almost feels like, you're thrown into an escape room, but there are no exits. There's only traps. But rather than resolving our differences with a narcissist using words, what do? They lob at us what? Ultimatums? Lob them like they're hand grenades. turning the dialogue itself into a battlefield. And their threats, cross me and you'll find yourself in no man's land. It's like a narcissist mantra. And with them, it's not just about, having a casual, slight little disagreement with them. Every little disagreement turns into an act of war. And every word that's used or heard can turn into a potential landmine. What you're going to find in a narcissist's little world and little tactics, it's just like everything always ends with an ultimatum, painting every choice as black and white. And they love to say, my way or oblivion, because they believe they're the rulers of their own domain. And then what they rule with is just like an iron fist, like a tyrant who sees every tiny little act of dissent as just a sign of outright rebellion against their leadership. It's like living under a regime where, the ruler's motto is, agree or face exile. And when a narcissist responds to boundaries with threats, it's not a warning sign. It's almost like a billboard that's illuminated in neon, signaling the narcissist's sense of entitlement. And society just says massive ego. And you can tell right away that it's like challenge them. And all of a sudden, you're just bracing for impact. Because when you're dealing with narcissists, what you're dealing with is someone who places a desire for dominance above the value for mutual respect. And if you are in the position where you have to face off against a narcissist threat, it's not just about holding your ground. It's about cementing your feet to the ground. It's really important to just kind of keep track and document a lot of these threats that are made. You're going to feel like, you're collecting evidence for a trial, where eventually it's just like the truth becomes the judge. Because narcissists like to just kind of, that never happened, that never happened, but we have documentation. And it's just like, you know what? We stop thinking that maybe it didn't happen because we know that it did. Just one thing a narcissist hates being accountable. For them, it's just like, it's like vampires that are scared of the light. It's like, birds, the light, birds. It's like, the light is true. And it seems like you're allergic to it. Crazy shapeshifter. That's why it's like we learn to hold our value. We learn to respect ourselves. And these attempts, these threats, and these games that are being played, all an attempt to just diminish who we are. And that's where we realize the amount of bravery that it takes. It's just not just about being fearless, but facing the fears and holding our heads up high. It's like telling a narcissist, you know what, I see your threats. And here's where I stand anyway, so suck it, you cray-cray. Get back on that bus and go back to Crazy Town. You don't want it here. This is Sanityville. And what we reveal from looking at these strategies is that these narcissistic tactics, they're less about sophistication and more about kinds of laziness that will make a monkey face palm. And in the narcissist playbook, like those t-shirts that you get at tourist traps that claim one size fits all, only they're either too big or too small, or they never quite fit right. Narcissists, you'll constantly hear things like, everyone always ignores me. It's like the narcissist's go-to way of avoiding the nitty-gritty of an actual conversation. It's not about accuracy, it's about convenience. It's like a fast food of dialogue. And something that you'll find narcissists do a lot is just, invalidating your experiences. There's no subtlety to it. It is kind of like using a wrecking ball to interior decorate your living room. There's no nuance in it. It's a nuance to a narcissist. Never heard of it. You'll hear them say, like, you're overreacting. And this is universally what you'll hear from a narcissist. It's just trying to, dissolve your validity or your feelings. And they do it with the same kind of care as a bull in a china shop. Because what it ends up being is a narcissist way of saying your reality just doesn't deserve my effort or my thought or my ability to just kind of even have compassion for anything that doesn't come from my own brain. And narcissists love these sweeping generalizations that they make. Quite often, it's all tied to the social justice in their minds, because they love to just stomp over the complexities like a toddler jumping in a puddle. You constantly hear them like, you people always think like that. And it's like their mantra for just flattening the landscape of individual stories into a pancake of oversimplification. It's like reading from a script where every single character in this little script that they've written is named stereotype. Something else to be aware of, the little microaggressions that narcissists use. And when we find ourselves entangled in these narcissistic relationships, these little microaggressions are a way of turning it's the thought that counts into, I didn't think at all. And, the statement of like, you're too sensitive becomes like, a narcissist, Swiss Army knife insult. And what it does is undermines your feelings with the precision of, a surgeon that's just like operating with a chainsaw. What narcissists are always thinking is that every one of your comments isn't a comment, but it's just part of your agenda. And that's wrapped in a narcissist's fake concern. And it's just tied with a nice, pretty little ribbon of disdain. So it's like we just have to be careful. We have to be careful of other things like, black and white thinking. And this is a narcissist version of watching the world through a kaleidoscope. And they're complaining that it's not in HD. Because narcissists don't experience the full spectrum of human emotions. In a narcissist experience, it's like asking them to read, War and Peace, when they just don't seem to have the mental capacity to get past even, a Twitter statement. Because the world to a narcissist, through their eyes, we would imagine looking through their eyes. The world is like, is simplified as a cartoon. This cartoon is completely devoid of the richness that comes from, embracing the complexities of life. And we're not talking about like, high quality anime cartoons here. And what we're talking about is more of those newspaper comics, the ones that leave the ink on your fingers and smudge if you touch them. That's the cartoon world that black and white thinking from a narcissist gives us, which is why it's so important just to hold on to your truth in the face of all these generalizations. It's like being the lone voice of reason in a choir of conspiracy theorists. Because in this merry-go-round, it's all about identifying narcissist jabs and understand that they're designed to undermine you. And things like, destructive conditioning. It's like being a narcissist little magic show where the magician grand finale involves making your whole confidence disappear. Narcissists will say something like, oh, you think you're like Picasso? It's such a shame that you lost your touch. What is it? It's a cruel trick. Basically turning your canvas of joy into a tapestry of doubts. Another thing to be just very aware of is just covert and overt put downs, because this is the art of a narcissist giving with one hand and taking away with another. Imagine, receiving a trophy only to find out that it's made of plastic. And engraved on it, it says, congratulations, you finally did something right. It's like having a cheerleader that roots for you by day and then turns into your worst critic, your worst nightmare when the moonlight comes out. It's like that same person is end up your worst critic. And if narcissists could totally control the financial purse strings of relationship, what you're going to find is this financial dependence with a narcissist is their way of just kind of clipping your wings, keeping you financially trapped into their chaos. You're not just holding the purse strings. They're trying to tie you up with them. Stay with me where you're going to be safe. They're going to make you want to stay with them for like financial safety and security. So you just actually don't have the money to leave. And what it feels like on the inside is like being in this gilded gold cage and being told it's for your own good. It's like narcissists have this own gravitational field where it's just like all designed to just suck the joy out of the universe. And they're constantly doing little tactics like diverting attention. It's because they want to stay in the center of the orbit. And you're never allowed to explore the cosmos or the world or the universe or your experiences on your own. And part of it has to do with a narcissist's pathological envy and fear of losing control that kind of just lurks beneath the surface like, sharks beneath the waterline. Just mere thought in a narcissist's mind of you basking in the sunlight of independence sends a narcissist into a frenzy. It's like they want you to be convinced that you don't need anyone else. You don't need anyone else. All you need is them. That's what a narcissist wants you to believe. Because it's not about keeping you close. It's about ensuring the narcissist remains the sun in your solar system. So you know that saying where three is a crowd? Yeah, narcissists don't see it that way. Because triangulation is a tactic that they use. And it's like finding yourself like cast in a reality show where there's a toxic person that's both the host and the producer, and they're like pulling all the strings behind the scenes. Suddenly you're the unwilling contestant. And the rules that you try to follow are like written in mud. And triangulation is a strategy where a narcissist plays the role of a puppeteer. And what they're trying to do is create a cast of all these marionettes. And that's also they can say that, you know what, I just kind of spoke to all my flying monkeys, and the consensus is that you're too sensitive. It's like, really? With people that you've either, made up or gaslit? As if they've gone around and collected a survey of people that are biased towards them and then wrote up their own conclusion and then just tried to document that as fact. It's crazy. It's a kangaroo court trial that you're sitting in front of where the evidence is just fabricated. And the verdict it was predetermined before you even walked into the courtroom. The verdict was already determined. And narcissists, it's like they use triangulation, just messing with us, just casting smoke into our own thoughts and our own doubts, because it fosters doubt, it creates jealousy, it creates insecurity. You'll start to wonder, it's like, why are they so close to that person? And they're not talking to me right now, because it's part of the game. It's like, I'm going to give my attention to people that treat me well. All right, well, you go do that. It is just a game that you're playing, right? You see that. They probably don't. Narcissists love attention. If they can get a third person, a fourth person, or someone else to just kind of look at them as they're playing on their little narcissistic stage, it's just like you can see what their agenda is. It's just stag the starring role and just relegate everyone as just supporting cast members. Or better yet, it's just like, you're the villain, and I'm the hero. And I just convinced all these people you're the villain too. So, BS. And it's quite insidious the way that narcissists use triangulation. It's just kind of like they plant these little seeds of self-doubt, and they do it with such finesse, of like a gardener who specializes in just implanting invasive species into gardens, because they end up creating this weird psychological maze where every turn leads you further and further from understanding what the hell is going on. This is your chance. Is your chance to kind of flip the script on the narcissist, because resistance to triangulation is about tuning into your own frequency and recognizing that what you're dealing with actually is a one-man band that's walking around masquerading as a full orchestra. This is where you can say the narcissist, this gossip crescendo that you've just kind of created, kind of falls flat. Maestro narco. And it becomes your chance to just reclaim the role of conductor of your own life and to find peace. Because if our only reality are people that are influenced by the narcissist, that's not a real reality. This is where we can just kind of like, use the director little cut. And then you're just going to say, hey, let's cut to a wide shot. And this is where you can kind of step back and look at this entire scene further and further away from a perspective that's just untainted by a narcissist, delusions of grandeur. Because this roller coaster ride through the narcissistic funhouse of manipulation is where, the mirrors aren't just distorted. They're just downright lying to you. And one of the things that narcissists love to do is lure you into a false sense of security. It's like being invited to a tea party with the narcissistic big bag wolf, and they're dressed up in grandma's clothing, and they're promising, cookies and warm tea. And just as you're all there cozy and you're sipping on your Earl Grey, it's like, bam, the narcissist's teeth come out. Oh, you thought we were friends? Why the long face? It's like, well, because you're dressed as a wolf and you're about to eat me. It's like the emotional equivalent of finding that somebody baked you cookies and they were actually made of cardboard. They only look like cookies from a distance. The narcissists love, baiting us into these chaotic little arguments. It's their version of starting a snowball fight. Only they've hidden rocks inside the snowballs. And this baiting, it's like it starts so innocent. It could be just commenting about the weather, and before you know it, you're in like a blizzard of blame about, why you never liked your mom's cooking. And you're like, how did this happen? It was just a comment about the weather. When did this become like a whole question about your mom's, cooking? But it just ends up that way. Narcissists they're masters at just exploiting your vulnerabilities, and I feel like it's a hallmark narcissistic trait. It's like they go through their life looking for like little cheat codes for your own psyche, and what you'll find is that every single narcissistic barb, every little sly comment, isn't just random. It's like precision engineered to hit you exactly where it hurts, and it's just like, oops, oh, I hit a nerve. I'm so sorry. It's purely coincidental. I swear, it's not coincidental at all. And it's like narcissists are playing a pinball game with your emotions, trying to rack up the highest score. Ding, ding, ding. Bounce around inside your own head of the thoughts of the insults that kind of happen, and you're stuck there trying to process it all, and it's infuriating. And throughout the whole process, the narcissist is always like fake innocence, and it becomes like an Oscar-worthy performance. They play the victim card so well that you actually begin to start to question. It's like, maybe I am the bad guy here. Well, me, what did I do? I was just trying to show some concern. It's not just about denial from narcissists. It's about rewriting history itself. It's about turning the narcissist from aggressor to the aggrieved. It's like being in a soap opera where the villains in the story are the ones that are trying to convince everyone that they're the hero. So let's go into this what about me syndrome. It's like debating with a Spotify playlist that only plays a narcissist's favorite victim hits. And the second you start to make a point, it's like the narcissist hits the shuffle button. Oh, you beefed about my chronic lateness. Well, cue the violins, because I still remember that time that you forgot my half-uncle's dog's birthday back in 2020. How dare you? It's like, what? It's an exercise in futility. It's like trying to argue a point with a parrot that's only learned one phrase. The moral of every story is that they're the victim of their own behavior. Another thing to keep in mind is just the narcissist avoidance strategies to avoid accountability. It's like playing tag with someone who's convinced they're always it. And the moment you try to pin them down with just a smidgen of responsibility, they're off zigzagging through all their distractions. Oh, you want to talk about finances? Is that Elvis over there? Oh, it is. It's not Elvis. It's a narcissistic, masterclass in just evasion. And what they do is they attempt to turn everything that's any kind of serious conversation into just some wild goose chase. Another thing that they do is just distracting discussions. And you'll find with a narcissist, it's like being in a debate club where the only rule is that there are no rules. Oh, you mad I forgot our anniversary. Well, what about that time in 2021 when you overcooked the pasta? I still remember that. Still mad, still upset. So sorry and gooey. Just didn't even observe that sauce properly. Suddenly you realize you're not in meaningful dialogue with anyone. You're like in this narcissistic hall of mirrors where, every reflection is just a deflection away from accountability, away from responsibility. Another thing to keep in mind is just the way narcissists use, macro level derailment. This takes a narcissist's chaotic mind and just explodes it into global proportions. And if you find yourself in that, it's kind of like, you're trying to solve a Rubik's Cube, but the narcissist keeps pulling the stickers off and moving them in different places. And the conversation could start about, it's like, hey, we need to talk about your spending habits. Quickly becomes, hey, did you see that new Tesla that came out? It's cool. It has rocket boosters. It also comes with like a plaid interior. It's the coolest thing I've ever seen. It's like, okay, but we got to talk about the finance. And suddenly there's drama about, Justine at the office and how the coffee was cold one day. What you're going to find is a defensive strategy when you're dealing with a narcissist is the importance of being just very, very specific to all of these, verbal duels. And the narcissist is just trying to, you know what it's like? It's like trying to lasso a cloud. It's just impossible. You can't tie a cloud down to a rope on a string. You just can't. It's like you got to be precise as hell. It's like being Tom Cruise trying to steal a diamond while you're being strung up from the ceiling, floating over the ground that's surrounded by lasers, and there's a narcissist off on the side just throwing smoke bombs of irrelevance every single which way. It's like, whoa. Hold on there, narcopath. We're not exit staging stage left just because of all these diversions and these smoke shows that you're constantly throwing at me. So at some point, we end up wasting our breath. And at that point, it's just like, save your breath. The thing to keep in mind is the narcissists have this broken record method that isn't just a narcissist, its go-to strategy. It becomes their mantra. It's like, yes, we've been talking about this issue for 47 more times, and we're going to keep going. It's like the conversational equivalent of, standing your ground during a hurricane while trying to, stay focused. Think focused, when you're dealing with a narcissist, while they're doing their best to throw you off the scent, it's kind of like, you're a detective in a mystery novel where the author just keeps introducing red herrings, red herring after red herring after red herring. It's not about keeping the conversation on the rails. It's about making sure the train actually reaches its destination. Narcissists will say something like, it's like, I'm not the one who's always late. You're the one that's always late. It's like a film festival of narcissistic denial, where every feature is an epic of their own making, starring you as the villain in the narcissist's own mind. What you're going to find is malignant projection from a narcissist turns every interaction into a bizarre art show, where they're the artist that's just slapping their own insecurities onto you like it's a living canvas. Narcissists will say, you're the manipulator, and this is coming from the master manipulator. It's beyond a simple deflection. It's like turning your psyche into a graffiti wall for a narcissist's own insecurity, where you start to see that every accusation a narcissist makes is actually a window into their own soul. So a statement like, you're so controlling, is a smokescreen, and a confession that they're the controlling ones, and subconsciously they actually recognize it. And it all stems from a narcissist's control issues. Because narcissists, they refuse to face their own demons. Instead, they prefer to dress you up as the demon. It's like they have all this, fear, worry, anxiety, paranoia, all just trapped up inside them. And they're like, here, it's your problem now, not mine. And it doesn't work that way. That's what it can feel like. It's like they're trying to make you the main character in a horror story that the narcissists actually authored themselves, but refuse to actually read. And blame shifting, it's a game that's like a favorite pastime for a narcissist. And it feels like a perpetual game of hot potato but you're the only one playing. And suddenly you're playing dodgeball with their accusations, and each one of their flaming balls of turd is aimed right at you. Once you realize this code of, blame and shame that they're handing to you is actually tailor-made to fit them perfectly. Because those projections are woven from, just threads of their own denial. And it's their denial, it's not yours. And by, refusing and rejecting a narcissist projection is like refusing to play a role where, you're set up to fail. Because here in the underbelly of narcissism, we're learning about gaslighting, and it's a mind game where reality is just so malleable like clay. And it's being used in the hands of a potter with just this evil vendetta. Understanding narcissist gaslighting is like finding yourself in a maze where every turn turns you further away from the exit. It's like, no, the sky isn't blue, it's green. That's what they'll say, because they paint over the windows to match their narrative. It's like narcissists always are playing the psychological sleight of hand, where it's like your perceptions are the cards, and they're always playing their Uno card. And variations of gaslighting are different masks that are worn by narcissists in this just carnival confusion. Like, they'll be like, yeah, that never happened. It's like a favorite tagline for a narcissist. It's as if the narcissist thinks that they hold the script to your very life story. And every time you take a glance, they've scribbled in the margins and they've written over your lines that don't serve their plot or their agenda. This is where narcissism manipulation kind of creep into our own psyche. It's kind of like a fog rolling in over the harbor. And it's meant to just kind of silence our own perspectives, make us question our own reality. Because they're constantly be like, you're not remembering that right. Kind of like a lullaby that a narcissist just kind of keeps playing in order to lull you into this state of just self-doubt and questioning your own thoughts and your own beliefs. And you can think of it as a toxin, because it's disguised as concern, but as it comes out of their mouth, it just kind of melts away your self-confidence. What you're going to find is the impact of gaslighting from narcissists on your perceptions. It's like being handed a map that's like drawn by a choreographer that's just hell-bent on leading dancers astray. And you're left questioning if you've been navigating with a broken compass. It's like you start wondering, it's like, did I invent that memory? Or is this map that I'm following a lie? And resisting a narcissist gaslighting strategy is the act of just dusting for fingerprints, looking for your own sanity. It's where it's so important, documentation. And it's like, he's like, cool, I have documentation now that you can look at. And you'd be like, according to my notes, the sky was indeed blue on Tuesday. And that green coat of paint that you put on the window is like, you're the one that's going to have to wash that off. This documentation, it never lies. And even when they insist, the ink that you wrote your notes down is invisible and it doesn't exist. Now, it's really important that we understand the kind of love that we get from a narcissist, because, it ends up being like this 1-2 punch. And it's a tactic, a 2-stage tactic. It's called like love bombing and devaluation. Because, the higher that a narcissist lifts you up, the further you have to fall. And it's like love bombing from a narcissist is like walking into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory and you're just dazzled by all of this sweetness, only to discover that, the chocolate river is actually laced with wasabi. And what starts as a flood of affection and compliments just raining down on you like confetti, what we realize is that these are just like grand gestures. They're designed to sweep you off your feet. They'll be like, you're the moon, the stars, the entire galaxy, a narcissist will say. But like, brace yourself, because, the aftertaste of all that sweet talk is about to hit you like a freight train just full of jalapenos. Because after the love bombing phase, the next phase after that is the devaluation phase in narcissistic relationships. And this is where they flip the script so fast that you're left with whiplash. And all those sweet qualities that they put up on a billboard to tell the world how much they care about you is now the subject of a toxic little late night talk show monologue. They'll be like, yeah, how I said you're the love of my life? Yeah, well, I meant you're as entertaining as a cowbell. They just completely lose interest. Yeah, it's great when a narcissist puts us up on a pedestal. And at first, it feels like, you won the emotional lottery. And just, you've been elevated to heights of just adoration. And you feel like it's so amazing. It feels so good. It's like dizzy up there. You hope that it never ends. But then, the chiseling begins. And then every little critique is like a hammer strike to the foundation of this false, life that they've kind of created for you. And yeah, you were made to feel like you were the chosen one. Now this pedestal that you're standing on feels more like a tightrope. It's getting smaller and smaller. And spoiler alert, there's no safety net in narcissistic relationships. All that's left is the cold, hard ground that you hit right at the bottom. And, this pattern of narcissistic devaluation, it's not like a glitch in the matrix. It's not like you just caught a bad one. It's a narcissist standard operating procedure. So when you realize, it's like when they say, it's like, my ex was a nightmare, that narrative that you heard was less about their past and more of a hint into your future, into what's coming. Because, you just wait. You just wait, because you're the next one that the narcissist is going to call a crazy one. And when you can see these cycles of love bombing devaluation techniques, it's like the narcissists use. It means that, you're keeping your one eye open, because you know that it's a bait and then a switch. And all of a sudden, these sweet nothings the narcissist kind of gives us kind of makes us kind of feel like we're getting sucked into the quicksand. And that's when it's time to just kind of completely reassess. Like, you are too perfect might just be, the prelude to perfectly disappointing. And what you're going to find is just slowing things down during that love bombing phase and observing their behavior as your ticket to empowerment when you're in a narcissistic relationship. This will give you a chance to just kind of watch how they interact with the world when they think you're not looking. It ends up becoming the difference between buying a glossy brochure and actually going and reading the Yelp reviews and seeing what other people have experienced. Because you're not on a quest to trade your sanity for their love. Because if that love is unsteady, then it's going to be like the ground is just going to open up, and all of a sudden you're just going to be sucked down into that hell that they've been propping you up away from. This is where you learn that, that true love isn't about these grand narcissistic gestures followed by, grandeur withdrawals. Like, it's about consistency. It's just like a gentle river that nourishes you rather than a tsunami that devastates you. And navigating through the love bombing devaluation of narcissism is about recognizing the pattern and putting pause on this playback and deciding that you're not interested in going into a sequel. It's about understanding that in the theater of your heart, like, you deserve not just to be in the spotlight, but have a partner who doesn't turn the lights on and off when you start to shine or when you start to feel good. Because love with strings is love bombing, because the next step is devaluation. Now, just when you think these narcissistic relationships are over, and even you're lucky enough to get out of these relationships safely, it's just like, it's not over. Narcissists have all these sorts of little tricks that they're hiding up their sleeves. And it'd be nice if there was all sunshine, rainbows, and happiness. It'd be nice if we can just kind of say, all right, we tried it, and let's just go our separate ways peacefully. And, they might try the hoovering to get you back in. If that fails, guess what? It's just like the last thing they can do is smear your name and drag your whole reputation through the mud, because they've suffered a narcissistic injury and it was because of you. And therefore you must suffer the consequences of, upsetting the Grandmaster. Really? Okay. It's like, just when you think the credits are going to roll on this drama, it's just like they find out that, they've penned a sequel and this is the smear campaign. And you're the unwilling participant that you never signed up for this. And dealing with a smear campaign is like discovering that you're starring in a real life horror film, and it's a flick that's just scripted by your arch nemesis. Pretending to be a rom-com playwright. Because this story started as a rom-com, and now with the smear campaign, it just shows you that it's nothing like that at all. In smear campaigns, there's no limit to what kind of tales that of all your flaws. It won't be broadcast like it's a blockbuster billboard campaign, that's about to hit theaters. It's like, breaking news: you're now the town villain, according to Grapevine Daily. It's just like, it's horrible. And the smear campaigns, they don't stop with just simple defamation. Like, you might also find that there's going to be stalking and harassment, and it becomes like a narcissist's methods of ensuring that this twisted tale has an audience. And what they'll try to do is like turn your life into a reality show where privacy is like a premium that you can't afford anymore. Because every time you turn around, you're just hearing all these stories from the grapevine. It's like, tune in as we uncover the depths of this, imagined depravity that they created. Hoping to turn public opinion into a jury of your own peers. And they love just pitting people against each other, for the narcissist who's just like orchestrating a battle royale. And everyone that's involved in the smear campaign, it's almost like, the narcissist goes around, it's like, choose your fighter, loyalty to me or allegiance to the accused, right? It's as if they try to turn your own allies into adversaries just like that overnight. And just through gossip and slander, it's just their tools of the trade for the narcissistic smear campaign. And they unleash, just contaminating, conversations with tales of just treachery. Well, they're the ones that are the villain. And handling a narcissistic smear campaign is about anchoring yourself into the calm eye that's always in the center of the storm. It's like becoming the Zen master in the middle of all this chaos of people walking around in clown suits and making balloon animals. Because what you're going to find is it's not going to be about the counterattack. It's about, solidifying your stance in the quicksand of a narcissist's lies, just holding firm. And there are going to be times where you may have to take legal action. And that can be a viable strategy, but it's not a tactic that we can take lightly, and it's not one to take for revenge. But what it ends up being is one for boundary enforcement. It's just like, this is a line you don't cross. It's where you say, turning their script into legal documentation. It just demands accountability. And this is where you say that I am actually turning all of this action into legal accountability. And no matter what people say about you, it doesn't diminish who you actually are. Because you're not just going to be a survivor of their fiction. You're going to be a hero of your own reality and a beacon of integrity in the midst of this fog of lies. Because your journey through the narcissistic smear campaign is not a path of retaliation, but one of just dignified resistance. Navigating out a narcissist's web of lies with just a compass of honesty. It's not about jumping deep into that narcissistic cesspool of sludge. It's about creating your own superhero story, your own origin story. Because as we kind of navigate through these narcissistic relationships, what we realize is that we're not just weathering a storm, we're learning to surf through the chaos and turning narcissistic little mind tricks into just kind of stepping stones to just a bigger and higher self and a more powerful and more aware self. Because these are childish games played by childish minds. And in this chaos, it's just like, just grab a surfboard. Just ride through these narcissistic, toxic little waves that they have. Because recovery starts by understanding these manipulation tactics and not falling victim to them ever again. Because your power emerges not from confronting the storm of narcissism, but from finding the calm to maintain your own sense of self within this storm. And yeah, occasionally we'll step back into this narcissistic void and just kind of lose our minds a little bit. But each time you step back, it's easier to step forward. What we end up doing is these obstacles, they turn into opportunities for growth. You're stepping out of their shadows, the chance to just kind of tighten our bootstraps. Because we're not just walking through their games, we're dancing away from them and towards freedom and resilience. And even though a narcissist may have tried to take you out, try to break you, it's like they failed. They failed because you're a survivor and you're still going to punch through it. On the other end, it's just like, never again do we ever experience these things again. Not to that level. We'll be able to notice it so much quicker, be able to set boundaries and be able to just kind of say no and move on with our lives so much quicker. It's not that we should be grateful for this experience, but it ends up being a learning experience. It's learning through the school of hard knocks, but once you learn through the school of hard knocks, it's like that stuff becomes in your core. And that's where it's just like, no, I can't be broken by delusions and all of these shaming tactics. Because it's not my shame. That's why it's so important to learn these tactics and be able to put names to them. Because you don't want to get sucked into this hall of mirrors. And recognizing these tactics for the carnival games that they are means that you don't have to play their game. Because this maze that they got you in, there's no exit. And it's not because, it's too complex. It's because the entire thing is an illusion. The entire thing is a fabrication. So step back. And when you step back and you see it for what it is, you can see it's just kind of like drawings that are drawn in a stick in the dirt. As soon as the wind comes, it's just there's a new drawing there. And it's not real. There's nothing even there to even try to figure out. The best way to handle all these narcissistic tactics is avoiding engagement when being baited by a narcissist. It's like Indiana Jones spotting a booby trap and just casually stepping over it. It's recognizing the trap for what it is. It's a lure to chaos into just their nonsense mud soup. And you're just choosing to, no thanks, I'm going to stay dry. Because in this grand theater of life, it's not about an audience member and their performance. It's like you're the star. You get to decide when the curtain falls. If things start to go sideways, it's just like, drop that curtain. Because the important thing is about, understanding this narcissistic manipulation and how we can arm ourselves through awareness. Ensuring that in the end, it's not the narcissist illusion that define our reality, but our reality that creates our unshakable truth. None of these nonsense games are anything more than crazy making wrapped in a thin paper coating of what looks like a normal person from a distance. But you tear that little thing and it's just like, whoa, something's like dead in there. Their humanity, maybe.
All right, so we're finishing up. I know there's a lot of information in there. If you need to watch it again, please just go ahead, just scroll back and watch it again, or go through my feed, see if there's other videos on there that inspire you even further. And if you're new to my feed and don't know who I am, my name is Miles. I'm a recovery coach. I help people process the trauma, because this is like, it's so mind bending, the stuff that narcissists can do to our brains, and it takes a while for everything to unpack. And what I use is hypnotherapy with my clients, and it's been really helpful. If you want to find more information about it, just type in recovery in the comments, and I'll post a link and you can find more about my program there. And thank you so much for watching.